tuitionacademy.com or call us on 07516 166 003. Masterminds, master the matrix.
मैं महानूर मजीद हूँ और कोर्ट मेरा एक खूबसूरत आशियाना है जहाँ मेरे जैसे हज़ारों यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की कफालत बेहतरीन अंदाज में की जा रही है। आएं हमारे सरों पर दस्ते शफ़क़त रखें और इस माह रमज़ान अपने सदक़ात, खैरात और एहतियात से हमारी कफालत में अपना हिस्सा डालें। अल्लाह पाक आपका दिया हुआ माल अपनी बारगाह में कबूल फरमाए। आमीन।
कोर्ट UK ऑफिस
0300 123 774 court.org.uk.
At Cake Inn, all our cakes and slices are freshly baked for that delicious taste. At Cake Inn, we bake 100% vegetarian and halal eggless fresh queen cakes. Delicious flavoured cakes for birthdays and weddings, ceremonies and all other occasions, with free customised messages, even balloons and candles too. Order for delivery or collection from Cake Inn, 489 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PE, and your cake could be ready within 2 hours. Find out more and order online at cakein.co.uk or call 01733 496 584.
Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Our shish kebabs are grilled on a charcoal barbecue for that authentic taste. Lamb shanks, fresh shawarma, chili kebab, lamb shish, grilled chicken, freshly made baklava and so much more. Eat in or order through Peterborough Eats or Peterborough Grab. Asia Restaurant, 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Call us on 01733 562 530. Great prices, great quality. Why not come and find out for yourself? Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East.
हाँ जी जनाब, आज तुसने किया 12 बजे वे
जरा फैमिली की बाहर खड़ना चाहना या खिलाने पिलाने से सोचना कुथे जाओ
इसी च परेशानी वाली कड़ी गल है। इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट पर जाओ, उते फ्री पार्क करो। उन्होंने मजेदार ते स्वादले पाकिस्तानी, इंडियन, चाइनीज ते इटालियन आय 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 खाने ना ते जोड़ी कोई नहीं, नाले सस्ते ते स्वादले।
ए रक्स इसका मतलब है बटवा भी नहीं होला होनेगा। इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट वैरायटी ऑफ डिलीशियस डिशेस के अलावा जेलाटो आइसक्रीम एंड वॉफल्स भी करते हैं। वीकेंड्स पर अपना टेबल बुक करवाइए और वीकडेज तशरीफ ले आइए। ओपनिंग आवर्स शाम 5 बजे से रात 10:30 बजे तक। इब्राहिमी रेस्टोरेंट 63 Sycamore Avenue, Peterborough, PE1 4JP. टेलीफोन 01733 313131।
If you want to learn about Islam and Muslims, stay tuned to Salam Radio 106.2 FM.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining Winning Women on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. This is the show where I showcase trailblazing women to inspire and motivate you on your journey to success. I am your host, Iram Shah, bringing to you a new guest every fortnight from a variety of different fields. Today, we are joined in the studio live by Mariam Khan, a legal expert, a British Muslim Awards finalist, and called the Rising Star in the law category. Congratulations, Mariam.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm really well, thank you.
Good, thank you for joining us. And congratulations on this huge achievement. How does it feel to have been selected amongst hundreds in this entry?
Alhamdulillah, feel very blessed and privileged. Alhamdulillah, yeah.
And in your own words, Mariam, tell the listeners your area of expertise.
Okay, so I specialise in Islamic wills, but also is under one umbrella of it's called estate planning, where we deal with Islamic wills, inheritance tax, tax planning, elderly clients such as lasting power of attorney, probate, estate administration, and so on.
Okay, great. I'm just going to remind the listeners, if you're listening on the Facebook live stream, you can comment below with your answers, join in the discussion, ask Mariam any of your questions. We are live between 5 to 6 o'clock this evening, so you can, and let us know if you're listening in for the first time. Tell us what you're doing as you're listening in as well. It's great to be interactive. Mariam, what has how's the lead up to the awards highlighted your area of work to the public? Has it helped? Have a lot more people been sort of asking you a little bit more about what you're doing?
Of course, yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. So, I actually was nominated and was a finalist back in 2020 as well.
Right.
And I think since then and onwards, I have a really good relationship with clients. I've built a lot of relationship with big firms such as Al Rayan Bank, UBL Bank, and I think this is why I've been nominated again this time as well. But yeah.
So they've got to know you,
got to know me,
built that relationship.
Build the relationship up, yeah, definitely.
Great. And your special expertise, you're one of few women in the country to hold a special. Tell us a little bit more about that.
That's right. I am one of few women in the country who hold the Islamic jurisprudence qualification, which in simple words mean the Islamic inheritance qualification. So I was quite lucky and blessed that my parents actually took me to Pakistan when I was in my teens, when I did my Islamic studies, and within the studies it was Islamic inheritance. So I was very lucky that I had that knowledge when I came back to the UK. Yeah.
And how does this the Islamic will differ from a secular will?
Yeah, so Islamic will, the difference between an Islamic will and an English will is well basically, to put this in simple words, the English law. They require to write a will, any sort of will, and they don't really mind who you give your assets to, okay? So they don't care if you're giving your assets to your neighbors or to your pets, okay? Now, in terms of Islamic will, the difference between an English and Islamic will is that Islamic will, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, prescribed and has mentioned in the Quran that this is the way you should distribute your assets. So Islamic will, what we do is, instead of giving it to neighbors and cats and dogs or whoever you wish to, we actually follow the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then mention that in the Quran, in the will. So for example, if the husband and wife, they receive a certain percentage, primary and secondary beneficiaries, the children receive a certain percentage, and their parents as well. Islamic will also consists of the funeral wishes, okay? Islamic will protects your body, in other words, is funeral wishes such as Islamic funeral according to Islamic traditions, no autopsy because it's haram. Islamic will also...
An autopsy is?
Yes, it is.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So you can't say no autopsy because you're unable to say that in the will, but you say no, I would not like to perform autopsy unless it's required, unless it's like the last resort and they require autopsy.
Right, and this is quite interesting because a friend of mine who had reverted to Islam, he hadn't actually told anyone that he had reverted, and unfortunately he suddenly died last year. When he died, his family did not know that he was Muslim, and as a result he was actually cremated.
Absolutely, that is so true. I agree with that. That does happen because I spoke to a client last week, actually. She reverted into Islam as well. She had the same concern. She said that obviously my children are non-Muslims, my family is non-Muslim, and Mariam, the biggest issue is that if I do pass away, how are they going to perform my ghusl and my funeral? So she actually wrote an Islamic will stipulating that I'm a Muslim, so in Islamic will she had a shahada clause because every Islamic will has a shahada clause,
right?
A declaration of your faith, and also it says funeral wishes, Islamic traditions, and I would like to be buried instead of cremation. So yes, this is number one priority for those who have reverted into Islam and the family members are non-Muslims, in order for the executors to make sure that their funeral is done according to the Islamic traditions. Absolutely.
And Maria, how quickly can this be implemented? Because we're also supposed to be buried straight away as Muslims.
Yeah.
So how quickly can this?
Yep. So once you've written a will, obviously it becomes valid when you sign the will. So you appoint at least 2 executors of the will. So and then God forbid if somebody has passed away, the executors would have the copy of the will and they can act according to it. you don't need to go probate in order to fulfill your funeral wishes. So they can just act upon it. So if you're writing a will, do make sure that your executors are aware of it. Do make sure that they have a copy of the will, for example, especially for the funeral clause, so that if God forbid time like that does happen, they can just show it to the funeral directors, for example. We have, alhamdulillah, we have Muslim funerals and Islamic funeral services in Peterborough. They show it to them and they will work accordingly.
This is very interesting. Listeners, if you're listening onto the Facebook live stream, do comment below. I had that example. I told you, a friend of mine, it was very disturbing to know that, he is not able to tell his loved ones that he had died as a Muslim. Now, some people might also be thinking about why to create a will. Now, I know Islam's perspective, we've talked about having distributing according to Quranic instructions, and then passing it to intended beneficiaries as well. I feel also that it preserves a lot of fairness as well, because so many people fight as well, don't they, when someone dies as well?
Absolutely. So one of the main aspect of the Islamic wills and Islamic inheritance is what I normally say to my clients is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran for us to pray salah, and we don't challenge that, we follow it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran to fast. We don't challenge that, we follow that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also mentioned in the Quran, Surah An-Nisa, to distribute your assets according to the Islamic inheritance. So we shouldn't challenge that. We should, fulfill the obligation, and our children should understand that. Now, this is the basic, basic knowledge that we should have as a Muslim, and obviously teach our children as well. So when we're writing a will, our children should be aware of that. This is according to Islamic ruling, and if God forbids the parents pass away, the children should accept that, because it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandments. So the reason being is it's very important to write a will. Either it's an English will or an Islamic will. Okay. The reason being is that when the parents pass away without a will, for example, there are lots of conflicts and issues between families. So in order to make sure that, we avoid all that conflict and issues, it's better to have something written in black and white for the executors and the beneficiaries to follow once you've gone.
And Mariam, you mentioned something that, people don't, there are certain obligations and rituals that we're told to do in Islam. Why is it, what objections do you receive regarding the will here? Why do you think people don't follow this through?
People do follow Islamic inheritance.
No, and this, as in why
challenging. The reason being is that whichever will you write, either it's an English will or Islamic will, and you put many trusts in the will and make sure that you've safeguarded the will, there will always be a person who's challenging the will. Mm-hmm. Okay, and anyone can challenge any will, no matter how good the will is written. Okay, now what I'm trying to say is that if we write an Islamic will, our children shouldn't challenge that. Yeah. And they should have that understanding that it's Allah's commandments. Now, if sometimes when we have clients with writing wills where they're excluding a child, that child will obviously definitely, and we do have cases, they will challenge that will because they said our parents have excluded us. So Islamically, it's not permissible to exclude a child, even though that child has maybe disobeyed you, because excluding that child will mean that you're disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandments. Yeah. So yeah.
And Maria, a will, but my understanding is that a will is not just for afterwards as well. So some elements of it is for this life, is whilst we're alive as well. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So a will covers a lot of aspects of your life. So as I mentioned, is that your funeral wishes first of all, and also it protects your family. Once we've gone, it protects your family because you're giving them their share, the share they're entitled to. No less, no more. So according to the Islamic, the shares. And also it protects your children. If you have minor children and if you've passed away, who will take care of your child? Because then the authorities will step in and say, okay, who's the best person to take care of the child? Now, it's very important to have that guardianship rule in your will as well.
That's referred to guardianship.
Guardianship, that's right. So if your children are under the age of 18 and both parents are not there, so somebody will need to step in. And now it is quite simple. If you write in the will, appoint guardians, because you know what sort of person or whoever the family member or your friend is will be suitable to take care of children. So it's good to appoint that, because if you do not have that guardianship appointment, the authorities can step in and say, right, we will choose a guardian for you, or the family members might have to go back and forth and fight for the child. So it's better to have that in your will as well. One more aspect of the will definitely benefit you is stipulating some sort of clause for charity, which, you know, as a Muslim, we believe that that's something that's a continuous reward once we've gone. So yeah.
Sadqa Jariyah.
Sadqa Jariyah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So tell us a little bit more about this. I didn't know this
So
point.
Sadqa Jariyah, you know, so, you can stipulate in your will saying, you know, I would like to give certain amount to the masjid or to the orphans, and that's something that's an ongoing reward once you've gone. You know, that's our iman, that, you know, the only thing will go in the grave with us is our deeds, and Sadqa Jariyah is something that will definitely benefit us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So great. And also power of attorney comes in this as well, is that right?
That's right, yes. So lasting power of attorney. So the concept we have is that some people think when they're writing a will, they're giving everything away during the lifetime, first of all. The will comes active once you've gone. Okay, so a will is a document, a legal document. You will sign the will and it will become active once you have passed away. Lasting power of attorney is a legal document which requires to appoint some attorneys. Now, attorneys can be your children, can be a family member, can be a spouse, who would enable them to make decisions on behalf of you. Now, there's two types of power of attorneys. One called property and finance, which deal with the financial aspect of your life, and one is health and welfare. The property finance will deal with such as financial matters, I don't know, mortgage payments maybe, or maybe, you know, speaking to the bank, or, you know, purchasing products and so on, okay, or speaking to the, you know, to the benefits or whatever benefits you receive. So to deal with your financial matters. So sometimes, like for example, we had during the lockdown, is that we had an elderly client who wasn't able to go outside doing shopping for himself. So he had appointed an attorney who would actually take his bank card and do the shopping for himself, for the client. So that was, and he was able to do that under the law. It's not a fraudulent transaction because he was authorized by the, you know, lasting power of attorney to make those payments and do the grocery shoppings. However, on the other hand, if he didn't have a lasting power of attorney, that he wouldn't be allowed to use that card. And if he was, you know, it's a fraudulent transaction, even though, you know, the attorney has actually, even though the person has actually authorized you, you can't just go and just use someone's card. In terms of the health and welfare, which is, I think, the most important one, because especially South Asian families, you know, we're really close-knit families, and, you know, we think that we have the right as a next of kin. You know, maybe, you know, if your parents are unwell, you can go to the doctors, and we think we have the right to the medical records and, you know, consulting the doctors. Unfortunately, we do not have that right. Okay, so for example, if I'll give you my example where my mum was unwell, went to see, she had some scans at the hospital, and they didn't allow me to go in and speak to the doctors or the consultant because I didn't have a power of attorney. Even though mum had full capacity, mum said, you know, I want to like my daughter to sit here and, you know, to discuss the matters. The issue there was the doctor said that there can be undue influence by the family members. So in order to avoid all that, have a health and welfare a lasting power of attorney so that you can make decisions. For example, God forbid, end of life decision. You will have the power to do that. You will have the power to make decisions in terms of your medical records, for example, like your parents or your spouse. Because if I, you know, meet an accident and, you know, go, you know, paralyzed or unable to talk, my husband or my mum or my brothers wouldn't be able to just, you know, make decisions. They would need some sort of a power of attorney, some sort of authorization to make decisions. Otherwise, the doctors will take over. So that's the health and welfare is, yeah, you need that in order to protect your medical needs, basically. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. And we're learning a lot about how having a will can help us, how it can benefit our intended beneficiaries afterwards, and how Mariam's expertise is helping following the Quranic instructions as well on creating a will. Mariam Khan is our legal expert today. She is a British finalist, British Muslim Awards finalist as well. Do join us if you're on the Facebook live stream. Do comment below with your questions, and I'd love for you to get involved. Tell us what you're doing. This is our new time for Winning Women, and I'd love to hear from you and tell us what you're doing. Mariam, one of the what objections have you? Not objections. I mean, why do you think people don't actually create a will in general? What have you experienced?
Yeah, when I first started doing this 5 years ago, I think our community, it's not just the Muslim community, but, you know, overall, people think that writing a will means that they are giving their assets away during their lifetime. They would
Yeah.
not have power on their assets. It's giving away and they will leave with nothing. That's one thing. That's one fear that people have. Secondly, especially now within our South Asian community, is that they don't like to discuss their financial matters with anyone. They like to keep it as a secret. Now, the downfall of that is that if we don't make sure that our estate planning, or we don't make sure that we've written a will as tax efficient will, because when one passes away, if your assets are more than £325,000, you will have tax consequences, which is called inheritance tax, approximately 40% of inheritance tax. Okay. Now, the issue here is that, and this is why I actually started this, where I first started, when I joined Will and Probate Services, my first actually case was, the matter I was dealing with was actually a 40-year-old Muslim woman who sadly passed away with cancer, leaving behind 2 young children. She had a portfolio of properties, but unfortunately there wasn't a will in place, which means that there was inheritance tax consequences. And I remember writing £90,000 of cheque to the HMRC to pay for the inheritance tax. So we had to sell those assets in order to pay the inheritance tax. And that's when I had the wake-up call. I'm like, okay, our community is not aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
Had this woman have a will in place, it would be so much easier and preserve those properties, those assets for her children and for them to enjoy. So this is when I actually spoke to my managing director, said, our community has no knowledge in terms of the inheritance tax and the consequences of not writing a will. How it's extremely important writing, especially when you're living in a non-Muslim country, first of all. Secondly, in a country where the tax man, will come behind you to,
Yeah, and we're paying enough
literally,
taxes as it is.
Yeah, so unfortunately you'll pay tax once we've passed away as well, and we haven't done the correct tax planning. So now, 5 years on, people do actually understand now. So my first mission, my first step was to spread the knowledge. So I started doing some legal clinics on Facebook and all, spreading the knowledge of how important it is to write a will, obviously Islamically, but also in terms of inheritance tax and saving that tax, and make sure that you're giving the maximum amount of inheritance to your beneficiaries rather than the tax man. And now, alhamdulillah, I'm getting really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, clients, alhamdulillah, I'm doing really well. I'm quite busy at the moment. People are understanding this. And also, I think it's the trust. So within our community, they were quite hesitant before. But now, alhamdulillah, I've gained that trust within our community in Peterborough and outside. We have lots of clients across the UK, alhamdulillah.
Okay.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, yeah, I'm really grateful for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But within our Peterborough community, which was my main aim, and we've gained that trust. And alhamdulillah, and whenever they need some sort of advice, they will, I think first point is they'll come to me, especially our elderly generation, where they were hesitant. And also it's because of the language barrier. Okay, that's one aspect. And also it's the legal terminology that is the biggest barrier between our families and the legal world. So I try to simplify the process as much as possible. And this is why I think I was recognised as recognised in the British Muslim Awards, is because my client feedback. So I made sure that I explained to them what a trust is in simple words,
Mm-hmm.
what a will is, how to preserve the assets, how to minimise the inheritance tax, how to minimise the capital gains tax, and how to preserve their will, and how to prepare the will in such a simple manner, where they came back to me saying, Mariam, we thought it's going to be really daunting, or it's a difficult sort of process, but you've made it as smooth as possible. And also, I'm really grateful of the team that I have, who actually supports me, in doing this, because I couldn't have done it without them. Because I'm out about seeing clients, and they're back in the office preparing those documents.
Oh, right. So do you go out and...
Oh, yeah.
For appointments?
I'm always out and about.
Oh, right. So people don't come and see you?
Yeah. So, for example, our main head office is in Market Deeping.
Okay.
It's just outskirts of Peterborough. It is part of Peterborough. So we have Zoom consultations. We have phone call consultations. We have clients coming into our office. We have clients who they cannot drive, or especially, as I said, our elderly clients. So I go to see them
Oh, right.
at their homes. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Most of the time I'm out and about to seeing our clients. So I do home visits as well, and speak to them in Urdu or Punjabi, and make the process as simple as possible, alhamdulillah.
Great. If you're listening into the Facebook live stream, do comment below. Mariam is sharing how she helps the local community with her estate planning. She's a legal expert. She is a finalist at the British Muslim Awards as well. One of the things also, Mariam, would you agree that people just don't think it's something that's going to happen to them as well? I know, do you know what I mean? I feel like we go on through life thinking that, you know, we just put it to the side and we think we'll do it at some point. We don't see death coming, do we?
No, we don't.
No.
And surprisingly, I have it within my family. Like my I was speaking to my uncle, and I said, "Uncle, you know, you don't have a will. You need to have a will." And he's like, "Yeah, beta, you know, I will." And the one certainty in life is death. But unfortunately, we don't. I don't know. We do accept that, but we don't really think about it.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, yeah. The time comes. So, I mean, the concept of having a will, we think is that, will I hit 70, 80 years old, I'll write a will, that's fine. But as I said, death can, you know, it can come, anyone can die at any time. You know, you don't need to be 80 or 90, it can be 16, 15, 20. Now, what we recommend is that to write a will when you purchase a property, so it can be at the age of 20, 19, 18. Write a will when you have a child. So, you know, for example, with me, I was married when I was 19, so I had my daughter when I was 20. So, you know, when you have, mashallah, yeah, alhamdulillah. So that's the point where I should have written a will back then, so that my daughter is protected, because my main asset is my child, of course. So in order to protect my child, no matter what age you are, but when you do have children, for example, and that's the first point that you need to think about, right, I need to write a will and then appoint a guardian for my child.
Well, I'm very overdue then, because I've got 3.
Mashallah, yeah, same way, I've got 3 as well, alhamdulillah. Yeah, so definitely, yeah. So when you have children, you know, that's when you need to write a will, no matter what age you are. Or, you know, first time buyer, you're buying a property, for example, you've got property, that's a main asset. I need to make sure that it's gone to, and God forbid something does happen to you, make sure that it goes to the rightful beneficiary, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that if you own anything, even as small as the size of a peppercorn, it must go to the beneficiaries, the rightful beneficiaries, either the primary or secondary beneficiaries. And I'm sure that we own things that's more than a peppercorn, you know, our phones, our cars, you know, our jewelry, our, you know, designer handbags, shoes, our PlayStations, you know, gadgets. It doesn't have to be savings. It doesn't have to be, you know, your residence, your house. It can be as small as your phone, for example. So you need to make sure that, you know, you stipulate that in a will and make sure that it goes to the righteous.
So I think Mariam just debunked a myth there, because I felt as if you needed a certain number of tangible assets, and I'm talking assets, I'm thinking houses, you know, before you even think about writing a will. But you're saying even the smallest, minutest of things,
absolutely,
jewelry, money, savings, all of this, children,
absolutely. And also what I've learned is that we are worth more when we die than we're alive, because we have pension pays out, we have loads of, you know, policies, insurance policies, you know, death and service policies pay out when we, you know, when one passes away, especially when you're working. Now, obviously we don't think about that. You need to write a will to make sure that those payouts go to the rightful beneficiaries. You know, I would also make sure that there's no inheritance tax consequences, because one thing we need to make sure that, you know, our children receive the maximum amount of inheritance. So when we're writing a will, or when we're advising the client writing wills, so any sort of client, whatever age, either they're at 18 or they're 80, when they come to us, I'll make sure I'll ask them, right, okay, so what do you have? You know, savings, a property or a car. You know, if they're working, you know, do you have debt and service policies, and, you know, and then we will calculate everything and then work out how many what's their inheritance tax consequences, and write their will according to the write the will as a tax efficient will. We can't just go ahead and write Islamic will or English will and not implementing the tax and not considering the tax, because that the taxation is the number one priority first, and then we will you know, write the will. Now, there's also...
We're just going on a break, Mariam, in about 5 seconds. When we come back, then we'll delve into this a little bit deeper. We are with Mariam Khan today, our special live guest at Salam Radio, Winning Women Show. See you soon.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Masterminds Tuition Academy is for your high schoolers, your something to provers, your subject strugglers and keen learners, your brave jumpers and fist pumpers. Affordable personalised learning plans are delivered through our centres in schools across Peterborough. But not to worry, we also provide online and home visits with flexible timings. Whether it is maths, English, science or 11 plus, Masterminds is a must. Find us on all socials and visit our website, mastermindstuitionacademy.com, or call us on 07516 166 003. Masterminds, master the matrix.
HS Lawyers make it so simple. Contact Majid Sarwar or Asad Arif today for any matters relating to immigration, family, business or property. Google HS Lawyers to see why we're the highest reviewed firm in Peterborough, with over 500 testimonies on our honesty, speed and excellent communication, making your legal matter simple, easy and stress-free. Contact us today on 01733 703 978. That's 01733 703 978, or email us at peterborough@hs-lawyers.co.uk. HS Lawyers, built on values of integrity and respect, with offices in Peterborough and throughout the West Midlands.
It's estimated that 5,760 children become orphaned every day, and the numbers are rising. UKIM ensures that the orphans we sponsor receive healthcare, food, education and shelter to show them that there are people who care. This Ramadan, from just £30 per month, you can make a real change in an orphan's life. Your sponsorship will provide them with much needed essentials to ease their situation. For orphan sponsorship, call now or visit ukim.org.
दोस्ता की परेशान है
यार कर है ना सारा सौदा मुक्या वा मुल्का विच पैसे भेजने
हूं नहीं मार फूड वाले की फोन खड़का ते फ्री लोकल डिलीवरी कार मंगवा
अलाता उथे कै स्पेशल आ
उना की लबाई हाइजीनिक ग्रेड 5 चीजें चंगियां मियारी ते सस्तियां ते नाले ऑफरां ही ऑफरां
और क्या
ताजा गोश्त ताजी सब्जियां ते फ्रूट आटा चावल दालां मसाले ते जूस सारे बिल जमा करने गैस ते इलेक्ट्रिक नो टॉप अप भी करने पाकिस्तान पैसे बिल्कुल फ्री भेजने मतलब के एक चिड़ी ने दूध ही छड़ी ते हर शय लबनी
और जने ने आप उतरा Amar Food Store and Halal Meat 613B Lincoln Road Peterborough telephone 01733 687374
महानूर मजीद हूँ और कोर्ट मेरा एक खूबसूरत आशियाना है जहाँ मेरे जैसे हजारों यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की कफालत बेहतरीन अंदाज में की जा रही है। आए हमारे सरों पर दस्ते शफकत रखें और इस माह रमज़ान अपने सदकात खैरात और एहतियात से हमारी कफालत में अपना हिस्सा डालें। अल्लाह पाक आपका दिया हुआ माल अपनी बारगाह में कबूल फरमाए, आमीन।
कोर्ट UK ऑफिस
0300 123 774 court.org.uk.
If you have an idea for a show and want to get involved, email info@salamradio.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back. You've joined the Winning Women show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. This is the show where I showcase trailblazing women to inspire and motivate you on your journey to success. I am your host, Iram Shah, and I'm bringing to you a new guest every fortnight from a variety of different fields. Today we are joined in the studio by Mariam Khan. She's a legal expert, a British Muslim Awards finalist as a rising star in law in the law category. She specialises in estate planning. We have been talking in the first half of the show about estate planning, having a will, and some of the implications of not having a will. We're just going to elaborate on that a little bit more. Before the show, Mariam, just tell us a little bit more about the consequences of not having a will.
Okay. The major consequence of not having a will is the taxation. When we have a concept that if I pass away, my spouse will automatically inherit my assets. That's not the case. So your spouse will inherit an asset, but a certain amount. And the remainder will go, according to the rules of intestacy. Now, the issue there is, you will go through the rule of intestacy, but the major issue is inheritance tax consequences. Whoever goes to your spouse, you get a spouse exemption, that will not be taxed. But the remainder of the assets will be taxed 40%. So 40% is quite a lot, it's technically half of your estate. So it's a major thing that you need to write a will. And also when you have, what I normally get is that when there's no will, there's more complication in terms of family members. They wouldn't cooperate. Maybe one of the child will say, okay, let's start the estate administration, because you have to declare everything to the HMRC. Once everything's declared to HMRC, they say, okay, it's good to go. Or, there's some taxation. You need to pay the tax. Once that's clear, then we apply for the probate. In order to start the process, we need the consent of the beneficiaries or the person who next in line under the rules of intestacy. The issue sometimes happens is that when both their parents pass away and they're like 5 children or 6 siblings, we need their consent. And maybe one of them say, no, we don't want to do it. Or why is she doing it? Why is he doing it? So there's lots of conflict, and we're like sitting in there within the, sometimes when I'm sitting with clients, they're arguing with each other, and it's very hard to to explain to them, right, we need to do this, we need to sit down, we need to cooperate. It's better. So I believe having a will, it's better to have a will so that you appoint your executors, that which person is suitable to do this job. The executor can be a friend, it can be a family member, it can be, your children, somebody that that will take that responsibility and make sure that, they administer the estate correctly without going through conflicts and all. So it's very important. And also, as I said before, funeral wishes. You need to make sure that, your funeral is performed according to Islamic traditions, according to your wishes. And, and also, as I mentioned before, guardianship, you need to make sure that, you protect your children by appointing a guardianship, because if you die without a will and you don't have a guardian, that's another issue. So, these are the most important major issues that we get. And I think the major issue is the inheritance tax. As I mentioned before, that it's not nice writing to, checks to HMRC of thousands of pounds, just paying them that inheritance instead of the beneficiaries.
Yeah, and Mariam Khan's with us. She's a legal expert on estate planning. If you're listening on the Facebook live stream, do comment below with any questions you have. If you're listening in, tell us how you're listening, tell us what you're doing. We'd love for you to get involved on in the show. I think people just don't think, do they? They just think that things will be sorted, but there's so many conflicts, as you say, afterwards. So now I have also come across online wills as well. Now, what's the difference between coming to someone like yourself, a professional, or doing it simply over online?
Okay, right. So if you are writing a will, now the one thing I always say to everybody is that the assets we have is a hard earning, right? We worked really hard to gain these assets and all. We need to make sure that these assets go to our children. Now, when you're writing a will, okay, and when you're coming to us, we will give you the advice in terms of inheritance tax, the main thing, the taxation, and then what we do normally is that when we're speaking to our client, we will gather, some idea. We'll ask them questions such as, the size of the estates, what they have life insurance policies, or they have, different assets. So we do the calculation. We make sure that, how we will find out ways how to minimize the inheritance tax. Okay. Then we'll write in a will that is tax efficient. Now, when you go online, you need to fill in the form, for example. You fill in the form, you put your beneficiaries in, you add your executors in, your funeral wishes, and that's it done. Now, the issue there is it's absolutely fine, but those wills do attract inheritance tax because they are not using exemptions in order to minimize inheritance. Because writing a will, yes, it means that you're giving your assets, you're writing your wishes down, saying that, I would like my wife, my children to receive these assets. But you need to consider the taxation as well. And it's quite complicated, the taxation, the calculation. So this is why you need to go to an expert, a will writer, or a paralegal, or a lawyer, or a solicitor, or somebody who is expert in this field, so that they can give you the tax advice that you need, especially for inheritance tax, and make sure that your will is made a tax efficient will is extremely important. Otherwise, this you can buy wills online for £20, but the issue there is, as I said, there's no one there to advise you if you're writing the will correctly.
Yeah, it's quite a complex topic. I would not want to do that online.
Absolutely. As I said, it's because it's a hard earning that, all of our assets are. And for example, if you're buying, I don't know, a property, would you do the conveyancing yourself, or would you rather go to a solicitor? You would go to a solicitor, right? Because it's a big asset. Same with the will, same with your estate planning. It's not that property, it's everything that you own. And to make sure that that's protected once you've gone. Because when you're alive, okay, you can see, okay, I can do this, I can do that. But once you've gone, who's going to look at it? Who's going to make sure that that's done properly? So it's better to speak to someone, a professional with professional advice, someone who has expertise in this sort of area, expertise in inheritance tax especially, and, take their advice. And especially with us, we give free consultation. Our consultations are free. And then we'll explain to the clients, right, this is how it is, this is how it works out. This is the best way to minimize your inheritance tax, and this is how to write your either English will or an Islamic will. So I think the key difference is inheritance tax consequences. I mean, if you think your assets are below the threshold, if you think that you don't have assets such as your home, then go ahead, you can write an online will. But there's 37% that will be accepted in the court again, otherwise it'll go through the rules of intestacy. I think you need to definitely take some legal advice before doing that.
Definitely. Yeah. Now, Mariam, so far I've noticed that we've been directing our conversation towards people that haven't got a will. What about the ones that do have a will? How often should they be updating their will?
That is a very good question. Yes. You should update your will at least every 2 years. Update as in just check your will, check your circumstances. So when we have clients, when we write wills for them, we either store the wills with us, we have a storage system, or, they want to store the will at home. And then every 2 years, we put a reminder, put a task on, and every 2 years, we actually write to the client saying, it's been 2 years since you written your will. Has there been any changes? Maybe they had more children. Maybe they bought some more assets. Maybe they have less assets. Maybe they, change addresses. So, or sometimes what happens is that the legislation has changed. The will is not tax efficient anymore.
Oh, right.
Okay, so you need to make the legislation change. So I had a client, they wrote will back in 2010. And legislation changed 2014. Now, that will had lots of trusts in and all that, which is tax efficient back then. But now that will was, because the legislation has changed, that will was attracting a lot of inheritance tax. So every 2 years, we normally contact our clients, but whoever's written a will, have the will, is really good to update your will, to check your will, or ask, somebody just to, especially a legal advisor or somebody to read through the will, see if it's still tax efficient. Because legislation, as I said, change, your circumstances change. So, it's always good to update your will.
And if someone's done a will by themselves or elsewhere, they're still fine to come to you?
Absolutely. If they've done a will outside or themselves, for example, I can read the will for them and say to them, right, this is the consequences, this is what's going to happen. And then if they want to go ahead for an updated will, then obviously we can update that for them. Because I had a situation back in 2019, 2020, just before the lockdown, where the mother had a homemade will, which is absolutely fine. Unfortunately, she passed away. She was gifting her assets, some to her children, some to her siblings, I believe. Now, we had around about £120,000 of inheritance tax on that because she didn't use the spouse exemption. She didn't use the exemptions. So this is the issue with the homemade will. The issue, as I said, is the inheritance tax consequences. You can write a will at home. It's absolutely fine if it's done according to the Section 9 Wills Act, if it's done written properly. There's no prescribed way to write a will, by the way. You can write a will, in a piece of paper and sign it and ask two witnesses to sign your will. That would also be valid. But inheritance tax point of view, you need to be a bit more cautious that, if I'm writing this will, would this attract inheritance tax? Am I better having no will, in place? So, yeah.
And Mariam, you mentioned a few times that, this happened in 2009, 2020. So you've actually been working over the pandemic.
I have.
How has your journey been over the last few years? And tell us about that period in particular as well.
Yeah, the pandemic itself has changed the way we work. And I think it has actually improved more. The reason being is during the pandemic, it's a really funny story where I actually went to Pakistan in March, just before the lockdown.
Right.
So I had
2020.
In March 2020, just before the lockdown, me and my husband and my youngest child, Zakaria, we went to Pakistan for 2 weeks because I had the Islamic inheritance knowledge, but I wanted to go recap and do more intensive course. So I went there for 2 weeks just to do my Islamic inheritance course. Whilst I was there, lockdown happened, so I couldn't come back to England. It was quite scary at the same time because I left both my daughters here with my mum. So it was, yeah. But what I realised in Pakistan is that I'm a workaholic. So I had my laptop with me, I had my work phone with me, so I couldn't use my work phone, but I had my WhatsApp. So luckily I took that with me because I had lots of inquiries coming in all around from the UK, not just from Peterborough, saying that everyone was panicking that time, like, Mariam, we need to write a will, this is happening.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
People panicked.
Yeah.
And I was panicking at the same time. I was like, I'm in Pakistan, what do I do? But as I said, I have an amazing team that works, for will and probate services, my managing director. So I spoke to Nick. Nick said, right, Mariam, start taking instructions, because then we could do a video call. So WhatsApp calls, Zoom calls. I didn't even know how to use Zoom back then, but, we learned everything. So start doing Zoom calls, taking clients' instructions, speaking to them, calming them down, giving them that peace of mind, and then emailing everything back here to Peterborough, and I had, as I said, everybody was working from home, but they were preparing the documents and sending out to the clients and explaining them how to, sign the document and all that. So we've helped so many people over the lockdown.
So this is at the beginning, because actually it's funny because around March 2020, everyone was having anxieties about different things. My anxiety was not being able to see my family, feeling like locked away, and actually people were contacting you worried about not having a will and possibly being affected by COVID,
absolutely. And it wasn't just people from Peterborough. It was, as I said, alhamdulillah,
probably a lot of medical staff.
I do. So I had I do have lots of clients who actually have a medical background, such as doctors and nurses. I think most of my clients are doctors and nurses, and since the pandemic. So yeah, I was grateful, alhamdulillah, that I managed to help, especially our community, in order to fulfill, their obligations and make sure that they get that peace of mind. Because obviously during lockdown, you couldn't leave the house, so alhamdulillah, I was able to communicate and get those documentation sorted here.
Great. And that's been your journey. And what else can you tell us a little bit more about your journey, how you've come to a point where you're an expert?
It's really funny because I always wanted to become a conveyancer.
Did you?
Yeah, I think that's like a typical South Asian thing that we like to do, property law. So it's really funny because my managing director, Nick Ash, who owns Will and Probate Services, back in 2017, he was my law lecturer.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously, I got married in a very young age. I was 19. I had children, and then I was like, okay, I need to go back to studies. So I was really motivated. I wanted to go back to studies. I went back to studies, and I was extremely lucky that I met Nick. Nick was my law tutor, and he was teaching wills and succession and probate. And what happened was that I lacked confidence, very shy, and I don't know how he managed to pick me from his class, and he said to Mariam, do you want to work for us? I was like, really? Like, yes. So that's how I started working from Will and Probate Services since 2017. And then myself, Nick, and one of my colleagues, Elizabeth, we actually went to an exhibition in Birmingham. So an exhibition in Birmingham is where other businesses, where they have the stalls and they obviously advertise their services. A fellow Muslim solicitor actually came up to me and said to me, sister, why don't you emphasize in Islamic wills? I was like, okay, I will look into that because I've never thought of that before. And then gradually what happened was throughout the day, I noticed it right at the end, but what Nick and Elizabeth were noticing is that lots of Muslim clients or Muslim potential clients were gravitating towards me and asking me so many questions in terms of wills and how it works. And because, as I said, I was very shy, I lacked confidence, everyone was shocked, like, Mariam, this is a different side of you that we saw whilst you were out there. And I was like, same here. I didn't know that I had that much confidence talking. So that's when it all started.
Must have been a subject you're passionate about.
It was something that I was passionate about. I didn't even know that I was passionate about. I think the thing is that I think I was more passionate of helping the community. and advising them on the things that so I think my passion was more sort of assisting and helping the community,
sharing the knowledge,
knowledge, and like, yes, I'm here to help you. I'll help you with this. Let's help you with this. So that's when actually all started. So when we went back to our office the next day, and we sat down, and I was like, Nick, this suggestion a fellow solicitor came to me and he made, and what do you think? He goes, Mariam, I'm supporting you. Go for it. If you want to do Islamic wills, you have the knowledge. I'm here to support you wherever you need. Let me know in terms of marketing. So he helped me design the website, Facebook page, leaflets, pop-up posters. So I am extremely grateful of Nick, being a non-Muslim and running a company. He owns the company, who's an English law company, nothing to do with Sharia law, who actually trusted me to go ahead and do this, because Sharia law itself is quite daunting, even as a Muslim as well. So I wouldn't. This would have been impossible without the support that I get from my work, especially from Nick. I respect him so much. He was my teacher. He's my boss, but he's the one who guided me. He's the one who motivates me. He's my cheerleader. So he even calls me, I'm his unicorn. He calls me his unicorn.
That's sweet.
So I was sort of person who was very quiet, very shy, and now I'm a totally different person.
And it's funny, Mariam, because you've mentioned that a few times, and sometimes we don't see our own strengths.
No, we don't. No.
And it could take someone like Nick and others to just highlight that, which just gives
100%. Yes, absolutely. And he's highlighted that strength, but he also helped me to become more stronger.
Yeah.
So if I had any weaknesses, he helped, right, let's sit down, Mariam, let's sort this out. You don't understand this part of area of law. Let's work this out. So I do, as I said, I get a lot of high net clients, especially doctors, where the assets are for, worth millions of pounds. Now that's a big responsibility for me to advise them, because I don't want to advise them something wrong. So I normally sit down with Nick and we do loads of calculations, and both of us like sitting there working out, right, how do we work this out? So it's nice to have that support. And also with our wills, if either it's a simple will or either it's a high net client, we go through a process where it goes through checking. So I will first, speak to the client, take all the instructions. I will then, I will go to the team. They'll draft the documents. We have 3 checking process. So go between 3 different people. They will check the documentation to see if it's correct. Check if there's any errors that any inheritance tax or anything that I've missed. I also, if there's something complicated calculation, I'll sit with Nick, because he's got 17 years of experience in this area of law, and I'll sit down with him and we go through to make sure that our documents are like 110% correct and there's no errors whatsoever. And we also, with Nick, as I said, I can sit here all day and talk about Nick, basically. But alhamdulillah, I'm really grateful that he's given me that chance to do this. But yeah.
And it's a job that requires a lot of attention to detail, it seems, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like Friday night, last week, I was sitting there at like 10, 11 o'clock at night trying to work out trying to minimize someone's, working out the calculation. It's the calculation that it's like you need to do. And the funny thing is, and I normally say to my brothers as well, the reason being I chose law is I used to hate maths. Maths was not my subject. But
now you're stuck with all these numbers.
Literally, yeah. But alhamdulillah, I really enjoy it. I like complex cases. I thrive, and I have that thing, like I need to do complex cases, and that's what improved my confidence, because I know my stuff inside out now. But alhamdulillah, it was because of the complex cases that I faced and the support I had with Nick. But alhamdulillah, as I said, the calculations it needs a lot of attention, 100%. And Nick, bless him as well, I'm emailing him like middle of the night, I don't understand this, please, help me. And he's like, he teams me back saying, Mariam, don't worry, we'll sort this out. This is how it works. This is what you need to do. I was like, right, okay, that's good to go. So alhamdulillah, I'm really grateful that I have that support. And as I said, our team has built, we started with 3 people. Now, mashallah, we've got 20.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah, and we're growing very, very fast. We have partnership with, like, for example, Co-op Funeral Services around the Midlands. We cover over 140 homes.
Jeez.
And we actually deal with their, we are there. So we actually were there, the wills and the probate, not just Muslims but non-Muslims as well. And alhamdulillah, it's going really well.
So we've seen your journey from being a shy girl, quiet, who's really come out and come to a point where you're now, receiving awards. So are you looking forward to the award show?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm happy. Definitely, because I actually, the first time I went to the British Muslim Awards, I was invited by, as I said, UBL Bank and Al Rayyan Bank. I went there as a guest. And when I went there and I met so many people, such as the Council of British Hajis, Brother Rashid. I met him the first time there, and so there's loads of networking events. There's so many people there, so many Muslims that the owner of Regal biscuits.
Wow!
And I was so excited to see him. I was like, "Oh my God, I love you, Cake Ross Mom, loves them too."
The actual Cake Ross, the red box
yeah. So they own that company. So it was really nice to see them. But especially with Brother Rashid from British Muslim Hajis, the Council of British Muslim Hajis, we actually invited them back in 2019. That was, I believe, with the help of Islam Radio at the what is it called? In Cromwell Road. I can't remember the place now. So that was the first event that we organised by British Muslim Hajis and Salam Radio and also Will and Probate Services, where we had the first ever Hajj seminar in Peterborough.
Oh.
Yeah. So and I'm definitely looking forward to meet so many other fellow Muslim brothers and sisters out there, because that's an amazing networking place that I get is there. And also I have this morning I was contacted by one of the other finalists who actually wanted to contact me and was asking about Islamic Wheels and see that if we can work together. So alhamdulillah, I get lots of
chance for collaborations.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. We are listening to Mariam Khan. We're coming towards the end of the show. We are talking, we've learned so much. I would definitely advise you to listen back. We've been talking about the intestate rules of not doing a will and actually having a will, all the advantages, the Islamic perspective on wills as well. What would you say to somebody who's still sitting on the fence with this and thinking about whether they should create a will or not?
Yep. I mean, okay, so yes, first thing is the first milestone is actually thinking about, right, I need to write a will and to contact somebody. We are very approachable. You can ring into the office, you can contact me, either Facebook, Messenger, just give us a shout. We can book an appointment. The consultation is absolutely free, and you can just sit down and say, Mariam, I'm thinking about doing this, but I'm not sure if I want to do it. That's absolutely fine. We don't force our clients to sign up. And then what I could do is we can go through their assets. It's not daunting. You don't need to list down everything that you own, but you just need to give me a rough figure of the size of your assets. For example, rough value of your home, maybe your car, your major assets. And then I can sit down and advise you, right, this is the process. All I need is the details of your beneficiaries, which are your children maybe, or your parents, the details of the executors you have, who would you like to appoint an executor, and you need to consider who would you like to appoint as a guardian. So for example, as yourself, you can think about who will my guardians be. So and then you can go and think about it and then just contact me whenever you're free. And usually clients come back.
It's taking the first step, isn't it? It's just breaking the ice a little bit.
It is.
Yeah. So, and Mariam, how can people contact you? Where can they find you online?
Online, Will and Probate Services, Peterborough. So we have lots of, because Will and Probate Services, we have lots of branches. We have Mama's Wills and we have Will and Probate Services in Nottingham and Northampton and also. So if you need to contact me directly, especially for the Islamic Wills part, or even English Wills, it's Will and Probate Services Peterborough. It's on Facebook. If you use Google Will and Probate Services, you can have access to our website and it has our contact details. And our Facebook page has my contact number, email address, and everything on it here.
And Mariam, how are you feeling? Because there's been so much attention since you've become a finalist. How does this all feel?
It's overwhelming. It's extremely.
You've been in the press.
I have, alhamdulillah. Yeah, as I said, I am still quite, still a such shy person,
So what would your advice be? Well, just in the last few seconds, what would you say to somebody who's quite shy and
trust yourself, and in order to build confidence is trust into yourself. I think
trust yourself.
and determination, motivation, and if you want to do something, put your 100% effort in it, and you'll be able to do it, inshallah.
And you've also surrounded yourself by the right people as well. That's really helped you as well, hasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The support network is so important. In order to build the confidence, you need that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I loved how you've really honed down into your expertise as well. So there's so much to learn from Mariam's interview today. Do listen back. You are on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. It's the Winning Women show every fortnight with you between 6 to 7 o'clock. I hope you've enjoyed. Do comment back, and if you're listening, do write #replay so I can listen back and on your comments. Bye. And thank you.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Bite into something wonderfully tasty at Big Mouth, 349 Lincoln Road in Peterborough. Eating in for takeaway or delivery, Big Mouth now have a delicious new menu full of all your favourites. Crispy fried chicken, juicy smashed burgers, finger-licking peri-peri chicken, handmade pizzas, quality doner meat and so much more. So visit the family-friendly Big Mouth restaurant for fantastically fresh food. Call 01733 201020 or visit getbigmouthonline.com.
Do you own a restaurant or takeaway? Cater Fair is an expert supplier of new and used commercial catering equipment. Visit caterfair.co.uk for quality equipment on sale at the lowest prices, or call us on 01733 310 115 or visit us at 11 Royce Road, Fengate, Peterborough.
And this is a race against time. We urgently need you now to donate your zakat and sadaqah and to save lives across the world.
When you have clothes, you can cover up. When you have food, you don't go hungry. When you have ways to keep warm, you don't feel the cold so much. Don't forget to help them survive through winter.
So that's why we urgently need you to come forward now and donate your zakat and sadaqah at muslimhands.org.uk.
Keep them warm, keep them alive.
हाँ जी जनाब, आज तुसने किया 12 बजे वे
यराब फैमिली की बाहर खड़ना चाहना या खिलाने पिलाने से सोचना कुथे जाओ
इसी च परेशानी वाली कड़ी गल है इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट पर जाओ उते फ्री पार्क करो उन्होंने मजेदार ते स्वादले पाकिस्तानी इंडियन चाइनीज ते इटालियन आय 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 खाने ना ते जोड़ी कोई नहीं नाले सस्ते ते स्वादले
ए थे रक्स इसका मतलब है बटवा भी नहीं होला होनेगा इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट वैरायटी ऑफ डिलीशियस डिशेस के अलावा जेलाटो आइसक्रीम एंड वॉफल्स भी करते हैं वीकेंड्स पर अपना टेबल बुक करवाइए और वीकडेज तशरीफ ले आइए ओपनिंग आवर्स शाम 5 बजे से रात 10:30 बजे तक इब्राहिमी रेस्टोरेंट 63 Sycamore Avenue Peterborough PE1 4JP टेलीफोन 01733 313131
Thinking of laser hair removal but worried about cost? Well Skin Clinic, Peterborough's #1 aesthetic clinic, offers 0% finance on courses of laser hair removal. We perform thousands of treatments using the Soprano titanium in our prestigious clinic. Virtually pain-free and suitable for all skin types, our team of aesthetic professionals can help you achieve your goals affordably. Well Skin Clinic, making life-changing aesthetic treatments affordable for all. 40 Cowgate, Peterborough. Call or WhatsApp us on 01733 555540.
Peterborough. Who said good quality fried and grilled chicken has to be expensive? At Sam's, we take pride in every piece of chicken that leaves our kitchen. Just one bite of our chicken or burgers is all it takes to realise we are the best. Visit us at our brand new place at 333 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PF. Or order a delivery through Just Eat, Uber or Deliveroo. Sam's, the home of great tasting chicken for over 30 years.
A day, 365 days a year. This is Salam Radio.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هباء منبثا وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين على سرر موضونة متكئين عليها متقابلين يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخيرون ولحم طير مما يشتهون وحور عين كأمثال اللؤلؤ المكنون جزاء بما كانوا يعملون لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا تأثيما إلا قيلا سلاما سلاما وأصحاب اليمين ما أصحاب اليمين في سدر مخضود وطلح منضود وظل ممدود وماء مسكوب وفاكهة كثيرة لا مقطوعة ولا ممنوعة وفرش مرفوعة إنا أنشأناهن إنشاء فجعلناهن أبكارا عربا أترابا لأصحاب اليمين ثلة من الأولين وثلة من الآخرين وأصحاب الشمال ما أصحاب الشمال في سموم وحميم وظل من يحموم لا بارد ولا كريم إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك مترفين وكانوا يصرون على الحنث العظيم وكانوا يقولون أئذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أئنا لمبعوثون أو آباؤنا الأولون قل إن الأولين والآخرين لمجموعون إلى ميقات يوم معلوم ثم إنكم أيها الضالون المكذبون لآكلون من شجر من زقوم فمالئون منها البطون فشاربون عليه من الحميم فشاربون شرب الهيم هذا نزلهم يوم الدين نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون أفرأيتم ما تمنون أأنتم تخلقونه أم نحن الخالقون نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين على أن نبدل أمثالكم وننشئكم فيما لا تعلمون ولقد علمتم النشأة الأولى فلولا تذكرون أفرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون لو نشاء لجعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون أفرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون